Imagine you're sitting there looking at a fund that's been paying you every single month for over a decade, no missed payments, no dividend cuts, while the broader bond market went through what experts called the worst year in recorded history. And right now, that same fund is handing investors a distribution yield of close to 16% monthly. Here's the contradiction though. The share price still hasn't recovered to where it was before the pandemic. The NAV, that's the net asset value, basically the fund's internal worth, has been grinding slowly lower for years. The Federal Reserve actually did cut interest rates 6 times between late 2024 and 2025, which was supposed to be the catalyst for this fund to recover, and it did recover significantly. But then, new pressures emerged in 2026. Inflation came back, a new Fed chair took over, and rate hike talk returned. So the question is, does any of that change the case for owning PDI, or does the math still work? Stick around, because the answer surprised even me. What is PDI, and why are we still talking about it? PDI is the PIMCO Dynamic Income Fund. It's a closed-end fund, meaning it trades on the stock exchange just like a regular stock, but it holds a portfolio of fixed income investments managed by PIMCO, one of the largest and most respected bond management firms in the world. Here's what makes this fund stand out in the income investing space. As of July 2026, PDI carries a distribution yield of approximately 15.8%, and it pays that out every single month. The current monthly distribution is $0.2205 per share. That's $2.646 annually per share. And here's the really striking part. Since PDI launched in May 2012, that's a 14-year track record. It has never once cut its distribution, not during the COVID crash, not during 2022, which was literally the worst year for the US bond market in recorded history. Not when 2 other PIMCO funds, RCS and PCM, had their dividends cut in January 2025. PDI kept paying. Now, you might be thinking, a 16% yield that's never been cut sounds too good to be true. You're right to question it. Let's get into why. What's actually inside this fund? This is where things get complex, and where you have to decide how much trust you're placing in PIMCO's team. When you pull up PDI's holdings, you'll see sovereign bonds, reverse repurchase agreements, OTC swap agreements, currency contracts, and hundreds of non-publicly traded investments across global markets. The fund holds nearly 1,859 individual positions. Nobody watching this video knows enough about Mongolian government bonds, French industrial notes, and corporate reverse repurchase agreements to analyze every one of them. That's just the reality. What matters is understanding the risk profile at a structural level. PDI must invest at least 25% of its assets in non-agency mortgage-backed securities. These are mortgage pools that carry no government backing. During the 2008 financial crisis, funds loaded up on these nearly all went bankrupt. PIMCO takes on that extra risk deliberately because it generates higher yields. The fund can also invest up to 40% of assets in emerging market securities, which adds another layer of credit and currency risk. So this is not a conservative fund. It earns its yield by going where safer money won't. And the key to that working is having an exceptional team picking the right investments. PIMCO historically has been that team. One potential drawback is exactly what investors call the black box problem. You're trusting PIMCO's judgment completely because independent verification of these holdings is practically impossible. That's a real risk, and it's worth naming clearly.
The NAV problem and why it still exists. Let me address the elephant in the room. PDI's share price has struggled. Back in its pre-pandemic peak in early 2019, PDI was trading above $30 per share. Today, it sits around $16.75. That's a significant drop. But here's what most people don't realize. The share price alone tells you almost nothing about the health of a closed-end fund. What matters is the net asset value, and specifically whether the fund is trading at a premium or discount to that NAV. As of July 2026, PDI's NAV is $15.97, and its market price is around $16.75. That means it's trading at a premium of roughly 5% to its underlying value. That's actually quite moderate by historical standards, and well below the fund's 3-year average premium of about 10.2%. Compare that to what happened with RCS and PCM before their January 2025 dividend cuts. RCS was trading at nearly an 80% premium to NAV. PCM was at around a 40% premium. Both had their distributions reduced. PDI today at 5% sits in an entirely different position. The interest rate story, and why it's more complicated now. Here's the thing. The original thesis for PDI recovery was simple. When interest rates fall, bond values rise, NAV recovers, share price follows. And that thesis played out partially. The Fed cut rates 3 times in late 2024, then 3 more times in 2025, slicing a total of 175 basis points off the peak rate of 5.25% to 5.50%. By the end of 2025, the Fed funds rate was down to 3.50 to 3.75%. PDI responded well. In 2025 alone, PDI delivered a price return of plus 11.83% and an NAV return of plus 15.44%. That's real recovery. But this is where it gets really interesting and where the story in 2026 has shifted. Jerome Powell's term as Fed chair expired in May 2026. His replacement, Kevin Warsh, inherited an economy where inflation has reemerged. Core PCE inflation rose to 3.3% by April 2026, driven largely by energy prices tied to the Middle East conflict. The Fed has now held rates unchanged for 4 consecutive meetings in 2026, and some officials are actually projecting rate hikes later this year, the complete opposite of what investors expected coming into 2026. What does that mean for PDI? It means the rate tailwind that drove 2024-2025 performance has stalled. The NAV still hasn't returned to pre-pandemic highs, and leverage, PDI runs at 31.69% effective leverage, amplifies both the upside and the downside in this kind of environment. No strategy is perfect, and this is one genuine risk for PDI. Leverage in a rising rate environment creates pressure on the fund's income coverage and NAV.
The ROC question, and a very important caveat. For anyone who invests in closed-end funds, you need to understand return of capital, or ROC. If a fund is paying distributions by dipping into its own assets rather than earned income, it's essentially eating itself. That's a bad sign. Historically, PDI's distributions have been classified as income only, no return of capital. That's good. But here's the caveat I can't ignore. RCS showed the same pattern before its January 2025 cut. No ROC, then a cut. With PIMCO's funds specifically, the absence of ROC doesn't guarantee distribution safety the way it would with most other closed-end funds. It's an imperfect indicator. What is more telling is the earnings per share figure. As of December 2025, PDI's average earnings per share were $0.8963 on an annualized basis. The fund distributes $2.646 per year, so there is a distribution coverage gap. This has been true for years. It's one reason the NAV continues to drift lower over time. It doesn't mean a cut is imminent, but it is worth watching. The math that keeps income investors here. This is where I always want to show the long view, because the numbers are striking. PDI launched at $25 per share in May 2012. At that price, a $10,000 investment gave you 400 shares. The starting monthly distribution was approximately $0.175 per share, so you were collecting around $70 per month in income. Now, fast forward 14 years to July 2026 with all dividends reinvested. Based on PDI's annualized market price total return of approximately 10.7% since inception, that $10,000 has grown to roughly $42,000. At today's distribution rate of $0.2205 per month, those reinvested shares are now generating approximately $550 per month in income, without adding a single dollar beyond what the dividends themselves compounded into. Even with the share price sitting below its all-time highs, even through 2022's bond market collapse, even with rates whipsawing for 4 straight years, the income has compounded. That's the story that gets lost when people only focus on the share price. Let me be direct. I don't know. Nobody does. What I can tell you is that PDI does not have the same characteristics that RCS and PCM had before they were cut. It's not trading at an extreme premium, it's not the most over-leveraged fund in the PIMCO family, and it has maintained its distribution through events that broke other funds. But the uncertainty is real. The rate environment in 2026 is no longer a clear tailwind. Inflation has re-emerged, the Fed is on hold under new leadership, PDI's distribution coverage gap is a known issue, and PIMCO, as we saw in January 2025, is willing to cut when conditions require it. What I look for is a fund that earns its risk premium honestly, is managed by people with genuine expertise, and has a track record that warrants patience. PDI fits all three. That doesn't make it risk-less, but it does make it worth holding for the right investor. This may not suit every investor. If you need capital stability, PDI is not your answer. If you need monthly income and can tolerate the volatility that comes with a complex, leveraged, global fixed income fund, and you trust PIMCO's team to navigate it, then the math continues to make a compelling case.
Over 14 years, PDI has weathered bond market crashes, a global pandemic, the fastest rate hiking cycle in decades, and a rate cutting cycle that's now stalled out. Through all of it, the monthly distribution has kept coming. The premium to NAV is at a historically reasonable level. The fund structure hasn't deteriorated into the danger zones that preceded the 2025 cuts at other PIMCO funds. And the long-term annualized return, despite everything, sits at roughly 10.7% per year since inception. The risks are real. The uncertainty in 2026 is genuine, but I'm not seeing the specific red flags that would tell me a cut is coming. I'm still in, and that's why. If you'd like to follow along with my personal dividend portfolio and connect with other high-income investors, check out the Patreon link below for regular updates and access to the community. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, take care.